Hello everyone, and welcome to week 14 of English 120. This week we're going to continue with our research project. We'll be doing the next steps to develop a thesis and create an outline, so you'll be ready to begin to draft your research paper. We'll continue to read in the Valley of the Moon. This time we'll be reading chapters 1 through 5 in book 3. You're going to be reading The Bedford Researcher, chapter 11, which is all about writing a thesis, chapter 12, which is about developing an argument, and chapter 13, which is about organizing your paper. Now don't fret, those aren't very long chapters, and many of them you've seen before in your comp class lessons. Then we'll be doing a discussion on the Valley of the Moon, and for your journal you'll be creating a thesis and an outline. So I just want to go back to what we've been working on so far in this class. In the last couple of weeks you've been charged with finding academic sources. So you've done your annotated bibliography, all of which you've got all. By this time you should have a good pile of sources that you're going to be using for your research project. The question starts to happen of what are you going to do with all these sources? How are you going to sort through them? How are you going to keep track of all the information that you're gathering from them? And one way that I like to do this, and this is the step that you're not graded on, it's just assume that you're going to be doing it, and that's the step of taking notes. What I use when I do a research project is I have note cards where I can write down on one side of the note card, I'll write down the direct quotations or a paraphrase of a piece of information I found in the article that I've been reading or the book I've been reading, or a paraphrase with a quotation in it. And then on the other side I write the bibliographic information in MLA format, and that way it's easily found when I am actually doing my writing of my research paper. And one thing to think about is having index cards is a really easy way, after you've done all your research, you can sort through all the different quotations and pieces of evidence that you have and sort them into piles based on the topic. And that way you can start thinking about, okay, what do I have, what topics do I have information to support if I were to talk about them, right? Sometimes I just sit down at a desk and start piling up all my different piles of note cards just to look at what information do I have to support my thesis. What are the different subtopics I could talk about? And this is a really good way to get ready to create a thesis statement and to create an outline. So if you haven't already been taking notes and you're looking for a way to do so, I highly recommend using note cards. But you can do this any way that you'd like. Some people use sticky notes. Some people use their computers. There's online versions of this that you can use. You use whatever works best for you. But if you need any help with note cards and you'd like some more information about it, feel free to stop by my office during office hours and I'm happy to tell you more about it. So the basic structure of the research paper that you're going to be working on is you're going to have an introductory paragraph or introductory paragraphs. It can be up to 2 paragraphs long. You're going to have a thesis statement within that introductory paragraph. Then you'll have 6 to 10 body paragraphs where you will argue 4 or 5 subtopics with evidence to support what you're talking about. Then you're going to write a 1 to 2 paragraph conclusion, and finally you will have a works cited page. There is an example of a research paper in MLA format in The Bedford Researcher in chapter 21, I believe, which is where it's beginning on page 357. So if you need an example of what this looks like, it's also in MLA format. So in case you have any questions still about what an MLA formatted paper looks like, that's a great resource to look at. I will go into more detail exactly about what your research paper needs to look like next week and how you go about drafting it. But this week, I just wanted you to have a concept in your mind of what is coming down the road. But before you get to actually developing your research paper, you need to develop your thesis statement. So all this time you've been collecting information towards crafting your contribution to the conversation about your issue and planning your argument. Okay, so all the reading you've been doing, all these sources you've been looking at, that's been helping you understand the conversation that you're joining, right? Now you need to make your stand within that conversation. And this process begins with your thesis statement. A thesis statement is a clear, focused expression of the main point you want to make in your paper. So how do you go about creating your thesis? The first thing you're going to do is you're going to review your position statement. Now your position statement was the statement you made based on your research question, right? Reflect on your position on your issue. Does it still represent the most important thing you want to say about your issue, right? Review all your notes. Hopefully, you've gone through and been taking notes on all of the sources that you've been reading. With your position statement in mind, you want to review your notes. Identify important information, ideas, and arguments you've come across in your reading. Review and elaborate on ideas and arguments you've come up with about your topic. And then you want to consider your purpose and role. After you've reviewed your research and notes, you should have a clearer understanding of your topic and be closer to the main point you want to make in your document. Then, what I want you to do, based on all of that pre-work, is to draft your thesis. You want to identify the important information, ideas, and arguments associated with your position. Review research questions and answers and underline keywords. Draft multiple versions. When you're writing a thesis statement, you don't just write a single thesis statement. A thesis statement is the most important sentence you will write in your entire research paper. An effective thesis can invite readers to learn something new, suggest that they change their attitudes or beliefs, or argue that they should take action of some kind. So here's an example of moving from a position statement to 3 different types of thesis statements. So the position statement was preserving privacy on social networking websites is an individual responsibility. Okay, that's a position. How do you make that into a thesis? Well, one way is to ask readers to learn something new. You can say, social networking websites don't reveal personal information. People reveal personal information. In this essay, you would be arguing, you'd be giving examples to support that is the people who are actually revealing personal information, that it's not the social networking websites. If you were making a thesis statement where you want to ask readers to change their attitudes or beliefs, you would say something like, we should view the use of social networking sites in educational settings with a great deal of caution. So you want to change people's ideas about how we view social networking sites in educational settings. And you would spend your entire paper arguing to change your reader's attitude or belief about this topic. Or you can ask readers to take action. People who use social networking websites should learn how to safeguard sensitive personal information. So this essay would ask readers to take action about safeguarding their own sensitive and personal information. Do you see how each of these is a different way of approaching the same topic, but with a different focus in their thesis statement? You will be developing one thesis statement, and I would like you to choose one of these 3 types of thesis statements to model your own thesis statement after. So for your reflection journal, the first thing I'd like you to do, there's going to be 2 parts to your reflection journal this week. First thing I'd like you to do is to complete the following activity to draft your thesis statement. And remember, if you have questions about this, make sure you review the chapter on writing a thesis statement, chapter 12 in the Bedford Researcher. It goes through all of these steps in great detail. In your journal, complete the following activity to draft your thesis statement. My research question is, write down the research question that you decided on. My position statement is, what you constructed from that research question into position statement. My purpose for writing is, why are you going to write this? What's your purpose? I want my readers to do one or more of the following. Do you want them to learn about this? Do you want them to change their attitude about this, or do you want them to take an action, and what is it? The most important words and phrases in my research question are, look for the key words. The most important words and phrases in my position statement are, look for those keywords. Building on my research question and my position statement, my thesis statement is, make sure it is one of these types. Is it something that's teaching readers to learn about something? Is it changing your reader's attitude, or is it asking your readers to take action? My readers are likely to respond to the thesis statement by asking the following questions or raising the following objections. Try to think through what those would be. Number 9, I can focus my thesis statement by rephrasing it. So really try to revise your thesis statement to make it the best you can be. The more time you put into this, guys, the better your research paper is going to be. If you have questions while you're doing this, make sure you post them in your reflection journal this week so that I can see them and answer them. Or you can always stop by my office hours or send me an email. After you've created a great thesis statement, then I want you to move on to creating a draft outline. I'd also like you to make sure you read chapters 15 and 16. I'm sorry, chapters 12 and 13 on developing your argument and creating, organizing your essay. Once you've created a strong thesis, you can begin to think about the 3 or 4 subtopics you'll discuss in order to prove your thesis. You do this by creating an outline. Your outline provides a framework you can use to draft your document. Your outline should include the points you will include in your document, the order in which you will make your points, and the evidence you will use to support each point. So your research journal number 2, I'd like you to map your argument and draft an outline. You want to list your revised thesis statement. That's the work you just did in your last journal entry. You want to review your notes to identify reasons that help advance your thesis statement. These are your subtopics. I want you to think through your subtopics. List all possible subtopics. You want at least 10 different ones to choose from. How will readers accept your thesis? Consider the organizational patterns listed on the next slide. Choose one. Choose the pattern to map the order of your subtopics. Now, if you're looking for the organizational patterns, those are in chapter 13. They are listed on page 219. Okay. Create an outline as shown on the next slide. Review your outline by asking yourself, does your outline provide an effective organization for my document? Have I covered all my key points, subtopics? Have I addressed my key points, subtopics in sufficient detail? Do any sections seem out of order? If you would like an example of how to create your outline, look at page 228. There's a great example of 2 different examples of outlines on this page. So here's the organizational patterns, and as I said, this is also in the Bedford Researcher in chapter 13 on page 219. And here's a sample outline. You can also find this on page 228. We will go over drafting your introduction. I've posted the information here, but I will go over it next week. If you have any questions, you don't need to worry about this yet, but this is what we will be going over next week. This is how to draft your body paragraphs. This is thinking about transitions between body paragraphs. This is drafting your conclusion. Then I will go over using sources effectively, integrating your sources into your draft, and using quotations effectively. And finally, I'll go over creating a works cited page. Your research paper draft will be due on the 13th of May, so you can plan for it. All right, your discussion this week will be about The Valley of the Moon, Book 3, Chapters 1 through 5. As you guys probably know, Billy and Saxon have hit the road in this section, and they're beginning to meet people along the way and learning how they will learn from each other, how they will learn from the people they meet and improve themselves and finally find the place where they want to settle down in. As always, please make your initial post by Saturday at 11:59 p.m. There's 4 questions to answer, plus you also need to develop 1 critical question to ask about these chapters. I do expect you to write a critical question, not just a cursory question, and when you respond to your peers, you'll be answering their one question. Alright guys, that's it for this week. Please make sure you reach out to me if you have any questions. I am here for office hours nearly every day. If you are unable to come on campus for office hours, you're more than welcome to call me at my office phone. It's 256-7748. Alright, I'll see you guys online.